Hello, Be Intentional family and BlackLoveAndMarriage.com family. Welcome to our exclusive interview of Prince and Charlamagne Leonard. We are so happy to have them. First of all, I have to say this. Welcome, Prince and Charlamagne. How y'all doing this evening?
All right.
Good, good, good. How are you, Charlamagne?
Hello?
Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good, good, good. Well, as I was saying, we're just so honored that you all took the time to speak with us and to give your side of everything that's been going on in this last month, give or take. I know it's been a lot that you all have been dealing with. And before we get started, I want to give a little bit of background for those who may not be familiar with the Leonards and their story. The Leonards, Charlamagne and Prince, have 6 beautiful children that were taken from them by Protective Services in the state of Texas, Houston, Texas to be exact, in early July. And they were recently returned. So I want to say just blessings and congratulations to the both of you. I know you all are both probably very relieved to have your children back with you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I know you are. I know you are. So I want to get right into it. I don't want to take a lot of time beating around the bush, but I want to get right into it. Your children were taken from you in early July because you all were living in a storage facility, a storage unit with your children. And as I understand it, there were social workers or caseworkers who came to the unit and saw the unit and made the decision to remove the children. I want to first just ask you, Prince, if you can share with our listeners, why were you all living in a storage shed? You know, was this a choice that you all made? You know, what led to that decision?
Yeah, it was a choice that we made. We stayed in an apartment first, and we stayed in an apartment for like about 2 or 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And every 6 months, you know, we had to renew our lease. And, you know, it was drug-infested, rats and roaches running everywhere. But every 6 months, you know, we would complain about, actually through the time that we were staying there, we would complain about the rats and roaches and the drugs, the prostitution, and people selling crack. And what are you going to do to clean it up? You know, they would never answer the question. So, but they'd go up on our rent every 6 months. And so I told my wife one day, I said, you know what? I said, by us paying this money every month to stay here, I said, we're never going to own if we don't find, we got to figure out a way we can take this rent money that we spending with these folks and save it some kind of, so we can buy some property or something for our children. So we thought about it. We brainstormed on it for a while, and the storage place, we was storing stuff there, okay, but we never thought about staying there. Until like a year later, you know what I mean? And so I said, you know what, why don't we just stay in the storage? You know, me and my wife, we was like, okay, we thought about it, and then when our lease came up to be renewed, we stayed in the apartment like 1 more month outside of the lease before we decided to take the plunge. And so we stepped out on the grace of God, and we said, well, this is where we're going to stay. And so we stayed there, and we saved the money. And by staying there, we saved enough money. We paid a down payment on some land.
Okay. So this was very much a decision that you all went into with both eyes open, it sounds like, and you all made a very calculated decision to move into the storage unit.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I have to ask, as I shared with you all prior to the interview, we've gotten a lot of questions from our viewers and listeners who come to our site every day, and they lifted up some questions. And I have to ask, Charlamagne, did you all have family or friends that could have helped you? Did you all, in your thinking and in your going over what your options were, did you reach out to any family or friends, or felt that you could before getting to the place of choosing the storage unit to live?
Well, it's really how it is, you know, family, they're scratched out. They had their own problems, their own obligations. And, it was pretty much established, and we let our family know that this was a choice we were making. And we understood that really since they have their own lives going on, that that's a lot to ask, for another family to come into your family. It was never said that, well, no, we won't help you, but they did, understand that this was a choice we made.
Okay. And as I understand it, you all were there for about 3 or 4 years, was it, Prince? How long were you all in the storage facility?
About 5 years.
Oh, about 5 years. Okay, so I saw estimates about 3 or 4 years. So about 5 years. And was that a part of the plan to be there?
It was only supposed to be about 2 or 3 years, but we had this great storm up here, Ike. And then we had a recession problem. And so, Ike tore the place up so bad, because trees and stuff was everywhere. And it was like these people wanted this enormous amount of money to come out and pick all these trees up. So I had to take my time to get that done. And then the recession came, and then, like the little monies we was making, it came to a halt. So I was like, oh, God. So then I had to go to college. I went to college, and I received a certificate of technology. And, and so that helped me actually start a new life. And so now I'm getting back on, and that's just pretty much.
Okay. Now, I want to just pause for a second because, in media and the news, everything is sensationalized all the time, and I don't feel often enough we bring forward the reality of some of the things that are being reported on. This whole thing hit me hard when I read about it. My husband showed it to me, and he said, look at this right here. And I read it, and many folks know I am a social worker myself. My background is in clinical social work. And when I read it from the eyes of a social worker, but I also read it from the heart of a mother. And I could not wrap my mind around someone coming into my space, into my home, and removing my children, even though I've had experience with it over the years. And I just want to ask you, Charlamagne, to kind of share with everyone, what you were going through and how that was for you. I think I read somewhere that your youngest was still breastfeeding, and so essentially I don't know if your youngest had to be forced to stop breastfeeding. I just can't even wrap my mind around it. But can you just share with us a little bit of just how you coped? How did you deal with such a traumatic thing to have your children removed?
Well, it was definitely, through God. And my husband, he's a great supporter. And it's just, when she came out, to me, it's like she just went on her emotions and her perception. She was unprofessional. I explained our situation. I told her our plan. She didn't listen to any of this. And I did tell her that my son was still nursing, and she just didn't care. I was like, what is going to be done about this? He's nursing, and y'all say y'all going to take him away, so what are we going to do?
Right.
And it was the reaction from them and the comments from them, it was heartless. I asked them, I'm like, well, I'm trying to find someone who would take them in. And it's like the caseworker supervisor told me, well, I don't have all night for someone to return my call. And I thought that was just so heartbreaking, because it's like, these are my children that I have never been away from.
Right.
And you just make a snap decision like that and say something so heartless. And to me it felt like, I don't know if these people are getting enough training on, actual social work, or they just out of touch. But it really was terrible to just be there, and there's really nothing you can do. And the really sad part about it was my husband was at work, so he definitely couldn't do anything. And they took him actually the Friday before Father's Day. That's when they took him.
Oh, my goodness. Wow. Yeah, it's just a difficult thing for me to even wrap my mind around. I just can't. Let me ask you this: when the children were removed, did anyone communicate specifically to you what the reason was for removal? Specifically.
No, she didn't. And she had been there for about like 4 hours. And I kept on asking, well, what's going on? What's going to happen? You know, when she came in, she was like, no, my supervisor, she will not approve of this. No, they can't stay here. You know, you and your husband stay there, but the children can't stay here. That's what she was telling me. And I'm like, well, what does that mean by you saying, no, your supervisor won't approve of this?
Mm-hmm.
And it ended up being where I had to call law enforcement because I was like, okay, I'm not letting my children go until someone tells me exactly what is happening. And
right.
then once law enforcement was called, then she came out with some paperwork saying what were her reasons. And it was one of them she was saying lack of food. And, you know, here is with the Texas Family Code, the lack of food is determined by how the children look. And I'm like, I don't see how she could say that they're not getting food and they're perfectly healthy.
Right.
But that was one of her reasons.
That was one of her reasons. Were any of the reasons, did they cite any specific safety reasons? Did they walk over to a certain place in your home and say, this right here could topple over or, you know, and hurt somebody or anything like that?
No, ma'am, it wasn't that. It wasn't that at all. When it came down and went to court, they were saying it was physical neglect, but their definition of physical neglect is not the definition of the Texas Family Code. You know, so it's basically, it was just her perception and how she felt that we should live, and she had the power to make the decision.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, you're saying that when you all went to court, they were still saying the court's position is that physical neglect took place. That's their interpretation of your situation to this day. That physical neglect took place with your children.
That's basically it. They were saying that it was where we were staying. We couldn't stay in the storage. But taking into consideration, we had, you know, the amenities of any other place. You know, we had the air conditioning, we had heating, had lights, refrigerator.
Mhm.
You know, it was a small space.
Wow. Here's the thing. The reason that I think this story, that I think you all's story is so important, it allows so many people who would otherwise just kind of stay in their own space, in their own way of thinking, to be challenged a little bit. I will be honest with you all. Living in a storage unit couldn't be an option for me and my family. But I say that here and now in the space that I'm in. And so I always say, too, at the same time, never say never. But that's not something that I could foresee for my family. I couldn't see doing that. But one thing I'm really clear about is that there is more than one way to do things, and that nobody has the monopoly on perspective. No one gets to say it can only be this way. And what I mean by that is this. The reason I was asking you all, you know, the questions around safety, did they say something specifically was, you know, going to harm the children or something like that? Because those things tend to be non-negotiable. Those things tend to be very fundamental to making decisions. But when you come outside of that, if you can't show why someone is going to be harmed physically or something like that, then we get into culture. We get into what society deems is okay based on society's norms. And so all of that to say, I hope that this, you know, sparks a lot of conversation amongst people in society, because I know that there are a lot of people listening right now who say, well, yeah, I mean, I agree with the caseworker, because, you know, staying in a storage shed is not cool. I mean, how are you going to have 6 kids in a storage shed? But I also know, and I just shared with you all, that wouldn't be something that I think that I would choose to do to save money. But I also know that there are a lot of folks who have come up in small spaces with lots of siblings who are poor, who don't have enough to eat. Your children, you say, were fed, and they were fine and healthy and all of that. I also heard that your children had very good grades, and were challenged academically and that kind of thing. I know folks who I've worked with, as well as family members, who have gone through a whole lot in terms of being challenged, in terms of their living space, what they have to eat every night, a lot worse things, and they've come out okay. They've come out whole and healthy because they were loved, because they had guidance, because they had nurturing, because they had a family that loved them, because they had stability, even in the midst of what seems like to many people an unstable reality. So that's why I think your story is so important. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Prince. Go ahead.
Friends, I'm talking about my people. I'm talking about black people.
Mm-hmm.
For us, in order for us to get to the point that we need to get to, we are going to have to go through a tremendous amount of suffering. Okay? People think we're going to be able to just do what we need to do by the way we're living now to form up our own nation, to do what we need to do for ourselves. It's like, no, certain things you're going to have to give up in order to do what it is that you need to do for yourself. Like this perception of life that's been given to you, and the way that we're living, how we spend what we do with our resources, we're going to have to cut back. We're going to have to be inconvenienced in order to be convenienced, okay? And that's how I see things. If you don't want to suffer for whatever it is that you're trying to do, or for whatever it is that you're trying to be in life, well, you don't deserve it. You understand? Everything is going to be easy in this lifetime. It happened with Christ. In order for man to be who he is today, somebody had to suffer. So that law from the beginning, with Christ down on the cross, that's universal in all forms of life. And in each avenue of life, it's universal. In order for something to come out of something is going to have to give up something. So we had to give up this perception of life that we had. It's either you face living in a dump, like an apartment like that for the rest of your life, or you could stay in a storage for a few years out of your life, and then for the rest of your life you can live like a king or a queen, or live like a king and a queen with your family for the rest of your life. Now, we showed our children that this is what you can do. This is how you can go about doing things. You don't have to sell dope in order to get something nice. You don't have to rob somebody to get something nice. The only thing you can do, you can stay within the binds of the law, and cut back and save your money, your resources, and get what you need to get out of life without hurting anybody.
Right. And I don't want people to miss this. If you're listening right now, I don't want you to miss this. At the end of the day, we can look at the story and people can pass judgment on the methods that the Leonards chose to use. But what I absolutely 100% admire about you all and your story is the fact that talked to both of them outside of, this interview, and what they talked about is the fact that they had a plan, that they were very intentional about trying to move their family to another level, and really about being able to leave something. Prince, you used the word in another conversation we had, you used the word legacy, trying to leave a legacy and trying to build wealth, and so I really don't want people to miss what you're talking about when you say, giving up something, being able to sacrifice so that you can have something more, not only in your present day situation, but something more to leave generations that come behind you. And I think it's easy for folks to not be able to see that because the story that brought you all to the limelight was so big, and it can overwhelm the true essence of where your hearts were. And I think it's always important to, just make sure you look at the intention of folks. So I really want people to get that.
Yeah. But that's it in a nutshell. That's what happened. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we learned out of staying there, We learned gardening and all kind of stuff, Now, look, we're getting ready in just a few moments to wrap this up.
Prince, but I want to, both of you, Prince and Charlamagne, I want to give this question to you before I get to my very last question, because I'm actually looking at Facebook as I'm doing this interview, and we have a question that just came in, and I'm going to give it to you, and I want you to marinate on this as I read these words. This question just came off Facebook, and this young lady says, I wonder, do they see their experience as divine intervention? I ask this because although CPS took their children, in the end, they received a better place to raise their family because of it. Could that have been God's plan? What do you say to that? Let me ask Charlamagne to speak to that for a moment, please.
Well, we always have believed that wherever God sends us, that's where we're supposed to be at that time and that moment.
Okay.
It's with this situation, people will say it's a better situation, but actually it's not. I mean, because now there's more of a financial strain. We're about to lose the property that we were actually paying for our children, you know. So, and now we're forced into a lifestyle that we actually were trying to get away from.
So you're saying because you're in this new place, even though it may be more spacious and you may have some of the pleasures that you didn't have in the storage unit, you're saying, for example, I guess the rent or the cost of maintaining that now take away from what your overall plan was. Is that what I'm hearing y'all say?
Yes, ma'am. Now, the house, it has no yard. In the storage, it was 1 acre that my children could go and play in. They could do gardening. We did all kind of stuff. This place, we can't do gardening. They can't go. They don't even go outside now because it doesn't have nowhere. They see a crack around this place. No, see, they didn't report none of this. CPS didn't tell nobody about this. They said a crack around this place. It's just a house. That's all it is. So now we have to pay all this money for this house, and now we're pretty much going to be stuck into this life now because the government say, well, where you were living is not fit for your family, so you live the way we want you to live.
Well, I definitely want to just challenge you a little bit when you say that you're going to be stuck. I can't believe that, and I don't think that you all really believe that. I love what Charlamagne says. She says we always believe that wherever we are is where God would have us to be. I totally agree with you on that, and I do think that you all are definitely on a path that is a road less traveled. It is the road less traveled because many folks are not willing to make the sacrifice. Many folks are not willing to do what it is that you all are trying to do. And again, I'm trying to get folks away from looking at your method because we all have differences in opinion on that, but looking at the heart of what you all were trying to do. Now, I guess the last thing that I'd like to ask the both of you before we end, and again, I'm just so honored that you all came on and talked with us this evening. If there is anything that you want the public and those listening right now to know about you and your family, what would that be? And I want each of you to please answer.
Well, my family real, okay? Okay, it's cut and dry. You know, we know truly what it's going to take in order to empower our children, 500 years down the road. We know what it's going to take. And first, they need an education. And then secondly, they got to have something that that they're going to have benefits to when the people before you die. You're going to have to leave something for your kids. And you're going to also have to leave them the knowledge of what to do with it when they have it in their hands, because that's power. It's like, what do you do with the power? Okay? That's how you empower black people. That's how we do it.
Charlamagne? Anything you'd like the public to know about you and your family?
Yeah, I would like to let them know that we have a great support system. That's one thing that we really stress. Our children can express their feelings and their concerns openly, and that's like one thing that when I grew up, it's like you couldn't talk to your parents and say, okay, well, I feel this way. And so what we do is we try to make it better for our children. We don't want to go through the same routine that we went through when we were children. So it's communication. You have to communicate with your family. It has to be open. It has to be honest. And you have to be willing to listen to your children because they are people, and they do have voices and opinions. And we must listen to our children.
Thank you all both so much for coming on this evening and talking with us. We really appreciate your courage. We appreciate your candor, how real y'all are, because that's what we do on BlackLoveAndMarriage.com. We are very real. And I think there's so much to learn from the two of you. I hope that you all will continue to keep sharing your story, to lift up your voice, and to learn the lessons along the way. Last but not least, please tell folks how they can support you. Prince, if you could just tell folks how they can perhaps contribute financially to you, and if there are any specific needs that you all have outside of financial contribution, you can go ahead and speak to that right now.
Yeah, well, a lot of the furniture we had at, okay, but it's just affording this place because I'm still in school. I'm earning my Associates of Applied Science, and you know, you just having the financial. You know, I got to get used to this life, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Normally I don't beg people for money, okay. Now, when I stayed in this place, I wasn't begging. I was working and I was bringing my money home to my family. But now, since we've been thrown into this lifestyle that everybody wants us to have, now I'm gonna need some help. So let's see if everybody gonna put their money where their mouth is.
All right. How can people contribute?
Ma'am, I have an account number here.
Okay.
It's a Bank of America account number, and I had a route number also. But it's Bank of America 488-029-678-611, and the routing is 111-000025. Okay. And my
And one more time, we're going to also have this on the site so people can see it. But repeat it again one more time, Prince, slowly.
It's 488-029-678-611, and the routing is 111-000025, and it's Bank of America.
All right, Bank of America. So I hope that folks out there will take a minute to go to your Bank of America. Bank of America is everywhere. Contribute to this family who's trying to stop playing and start pushing. They've been pushing for a long time. That's obvious to me. So please take the time, even if it's just a few dollars. Everybody's hurting right now. Everybody's feeling the effects of the recession. But if everybody who's listening right now, when you pass that Bank of America around the corner from you, took a minute to just go on in the parking lot and give $1 or $2, $5, $10. If you got more, give more. But if everybody just did that, all of that adds up. And if we don't support our own folks who are going through, who are trying to get to the next level, then what are we really? What are we really doing as a people? What are we really doing as a community? That's why we're here. That's why BlackLoveAndMarriage.com and Be Intentional. We ain't going nowhere. We want to thank you again, Prince and Charlemagne, for coming on this evening. We hope that folks have been enlightened, inspired, and elevated by this interview. As always, everyone, stop playing and start pushing.